Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're back in War Thunder looking at the enduring confrontation stuff. So, a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago now, I talked about enduring confrontation and how I'd like the game mode to pan out. For me personally, anyway. And after playing it in the tests that they've had, kind of, if you want to call them preview tests or beta tests or anything like that, I think it's a good step in one direction, but I still think it needs a hell of a lot of work. There's just not enough going on for me. I mean, it doesn't feel like a battle. It feels like a little skirmish between a few planes. But anyway, we're going to start off playing as the Germans in a Heinkel. I believe it's the H6, the HE111H6, with a hell of a lot of bombs on it. I think it's like 8 250s, so work out whatever that is. I think it's about 2,000 kilograms, enough to put a dent in really much anything you want. But when I started, as you can see by the tickets at the top, I started at a time where it was still... a lot of the battle had already gone, and this is an issue I think a lot of players are going to be put off by. The fact that you don't start at the start of a battle, it can be kind of annoying, and the reason I say that is because one side may have a definite advantage over the other. We'll see later on, and probably in the second part of this video, where we look at the other side, on the Russian side. The issue is that if one team gets a distinct advantage, especially when it comes with fighters, they can just kind of sit around your airfield and stalk you as you come out. Now, this can be combated by good teamwork and good squadrons and stuff like that, but most of the time, that's really not going to happen. So the best thing to do is to try and stay close to the ground and hopefully not be seen, which is exactly what we're doing here. Now, I like what they've done with these zones, where basically random zones will pop up in certain areas. The only issue is, when it comes to physically looking on the map, you can find out where the zones are. You can actually see them on the map. They are the same bases as you have in other air modes. And the thing is, they are on the map, like physically on the map, as you can see now. Like, you can see the tree line, you can see the river, and just past there is one of these bases. Now the thing is, you can't tell if that base is active or not, and it can be destroyed until you look on the map and try and match it up with the mini-map you're given when you press M. Now this is fine. I think this is okay, but it would be nice for the base itself to not be physically there. And if it is there, you have it as kind of like a secondary option. So you have a smaller base, not one of the main bases. So it still contributes to something, but it's not one of the major things. Because as I found out here in my Heinkel, there's a base right in front of me. It kind of looks like it's in the water somewhere, but I think it must be this one here. It's as simple as that. It must be this base. There's nothing else around. There's AA shooting at me, so it must be coming from here. Now, I don't know what my plane decides to do, but we chuck our bombs out. We hit the base, and nothing happens. So that must mean to me there's another base somewhere around, but once I look at the map, the base is basically exactly where I dropped my bombs. So, as you can see, the issue with this is the fact that I see the point on the mini-map, which is, when you press M and the map comes up, there you go. There's a point right there, I see the base, and it has to be destroyed. And the way you know it's been destroyed is because it goes from red to fully white. As you do more damage to it, the more white it gets. It's just like any other base in the game. And the thing is, I hit that base dead on, and nothing happened. But anyway, we're into a bit of a firefight. It's always fun in Simulator, flying bombers and annoying the general population of fighters, because, well, It's a hell of a lot easier to get kills as a bomber. Even in the H6, which has some terrible gunners, 7.62mm I believe, but he comes in with 20s, takes a big chunk out of me, and it's, it's going to be hard for me to survive. But this is an issue, as I said before. I'm pretty much right next to my airfield, or at least right next to the collection of airfields I have, and I'm being haunted by three, probably they're either Levechkins or Yaks. I believe they were Levechkins, the LA5s. But as you can see, he can just pump cannon after cannon into me, and there's not a lot I can do here. And of course, more shots, take out the rudder and tail, and well, can you imagine this happening in real life? Just remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is simulator. I don't know. I think it's kind of silly when stuff like that happens. But anyway, this was my first attempt at taking off with a BF-109. I believe it's the F2 that I used. And, well, it didn't go the best. There's a lot of shaking, and straight into the ground. So, yeah, that was fun. Thought I'd just leave that in there, just to show that not everything I do is good in this game. Most of the stuff I do is actually absolutely terrible. But the reason that happened is because, well, I'm not really using my joystick. I decided to just use the mouse for this. I didn't really want to set it up since I've moved and everything. The joystick is still in its box. But that's, I can still fly with a mouse in simulator. It's still not that hard. You just have to, when you're first taking off, as you can see here, the first thing you have to do is just ease up the throttle just little by little, and then when you get to 100, then, you can WEP if you want or not, but then you pull up, depending on your speed. But you've got to remember the nose will always dip down a little bit. If it takes more than the runway for you to take off, that's completely fine, even if you're in a fighter. It's most of the time always going to happen in a bomber, if you have a heavy load, but as you can see, it's a rough takeoff, but I'm still in the air. And now we run into the issues I talked about before, which I think is unfortunately an inevitability in games like this. And the inevitability is the fact that you are always going to have people who are going to take off and beeline it for the enemy's airfields unless they're not shown on the map. Now, at the start of the game, when everybody has full tickets, one of the challenges, or one of the missions to do, is to find one of the enemy airfields, whether it be the outlier, whether it be the one which is closest, or anything like that. And I think at that point that's good, because everybody at the start of the game can get up into the air. So that sorts it out pretty well. And it gives everybody a fair chance. But when everything is shown and found, as we can see here, the Russians are just all over us. And every time you kill one, another spawns. And all you need is a squad of 2 or 3 guys here, just basically bombing people as they're trying to take off. And one fighter covers another fighter, and you just do it over and over again. Every time I lined up on a fighter over my base to try and stop them attacking all of the aircraft on the ground, there was a friend of his behind him, therefore behind me, and I was getting shot up as I was trying to kill him. But anyway, without the joystick, the shots I'm taking are definitely a bit wayward. We do get some hits. Hit the fuel tank. There's spray going everywhere. He's going to go down eventually, but I've been hit as well. As I said, every time I went after somebody over my airfield, not the enemy airfield, I was destroyed by a person who was behind him. But we did get a kill there. I'm not sure if it registered yet. And we're not really in the best scenario that the BF-109 wants to be in. We're at low altitude, we're fighting over our airfield, where there's no AA, by the way, which is something that I think's been overlooked. since it's such an open battlefield. But I can't see him. I thought he may have just left me to help out his friend, try and get him back to base, but he's put a hole in me, quite a severe one in the left side, and I'm just trying to outrun him. And there goes my wing. So that was not fun to start with. And to be quite honest, it kind of got me feeling a bit sad. If I just line this up again. It kind of got me feeling a bit sad because, well, I'd had the bomb run, and it wasn't very eventful. It wasn't very fun. I just went to the point, bombed it, and then it turned out that wasn't the point to bomb. And then I got up in a fighter. I heard a bunch of guys shooting around me, realised that they were all enemies while I was trying to take off, and decided that I've got to fight them. So I thought, how about I start playing this how I want to play this? And by what I mean by doing that is actually play it like you would a proper simulator, instead of just trying to find the nearest enemy, killing him. So in my bomber now, I've decided that I'm not going to go straight to the fight. I'm not going to gain altitude because, well, it's a Heinkel. It's basically a mid-altitude to low-altitude bomber. But I am going to try and stay away from their fighters, stay away from their airfields, instead of just beelining it straight to their points. I try and go around and see how much better that is for me personally. And I had a lot of fun. I know it's a bit odd, but I enjoy just flying in this game. It doesn't always have to be all action all the time, especially in simulator. I love flying in cockpit mode, and if I can get points and stuff by doing that at the same time and not always have to be 100% concentrating on what's going on, then that is awesome to me. And that's exactly what I could do for a bit. And this also gives me a bit of time to talk about what I think of Enduring Confrontation. Now, I think it's a nice change from all the other game modes that we have. As I said before, in my thoughts about it before it came out, when I think I'd had 2 tests, now there's, I don't know, maybe about 10 or something, I'm not exactly sure. But I've played most of them, and I'm happy with it. It's a nice change from the usual gameplay, because it's a bit more slow-paced, even if your airfields get camped. Now, there are still issues. Of course there are. There are always issues with new game modes, and one of the massive ones is the fact that the maps are still a bit too small, or at least the airfields themselves are too close together. I understand the idea of having a forward airfield, which can get knocked out. I also understand the fact that you have 3 airfields, so if one gets taken over, then you have 2 others. If 2 get taken over, then you still have one last one, and I'm pretty sure they can't blow up all 3 airfields. In the Russian part of the game, basically there was just a bunch of Heinkels and Ju-88s just rushing our airfields, and I think it got down to the last airfield, but I'm pretty sure they couldn't take it out, and the second airfield kept respawning, even if they'd blown it up, so I think that's good. It means that some people will always have somewhere to spawn, so you won't just have people, just getting in bombers and blowing up everything. So there's one of the bases. Now that's what I mean about the ground bases that you see. They're very similar to the ones that you see in Realistic and Arcade. They're probably exactly the same, just copied. These are probably just the same maps as from Realistic. But with the ground bases, it's very hard to tell if you have 2 very close to each other which one to go for. And sometimes they'll have like an area of effect where you can drop your bombs and stuff. So you don't have to hit the base directly, and usually there'll be AA around it, so you know what's going on. But anyway, we're getting attacked, as usual, in our Heinkel. Even though we're close to the ground, we're going at a decent speed, people still come after us. Now, the good thing so far about Enduring Confrontation is that it's giving a lot of help to a lot of people who are not as familiar to Simulator, which is always nice. Like, there are a lot of players who seem to be... Oop, nearly hit the ground there. They seem to be realistic players, which is, always fun. It's nice to see them and everything. But at for me personally, Simulator is always going to be the purest game mode. It's going to be the best, it's going to be the most fun. And that's just because of the way I like flying, the fact I like longer battles and stuff like that. But anyway, with Enduring Confrontation, I think it's a good gap between realistic and if you want to play full-fledged Simulator. Because even though everything's technically in Simulator and everything like that, it's easy to get a few friends and just jump into the game and play it. Whether you want to do bombers, fighters, attackers, anything like that. It's really up to you. And the maps are big enough that you can just disappear for a bit if you want to try and do some formation flying or something like that. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend it because, somebody may come up your ass and just destroy you. But it's good for learning. The Simulator kind of has a stigma, I feel, in this game, where basically it's seen as the real elite pilots do it. And I think that's definitely completely wrong. There's a lot of people who are beginners who fly Simulator who just want to give it a try. And it is fun. I was one of them. But anyway, bombs are dropped, do a hell of a lot of damage, base is destroyed. Or at least it's damaged. And with Simulator, I think you always need to have more people in it, just like any other game mode. You want people in Simulator. Especially since I think the last time it was checked, what was it like? It was either 5% or 0.5% of the community play Simulator. It's probably 5%, which makes more sense. But there are better games out there if you want to play Simulator. Or at least there are games which are seen to be better. So the best thing to do for War Thunder right now, which is why I didn't really talk about it before when it came to Simulator, is either cut your losses with Simulator and just kind of get rid of it and just say, if you want Simulator, play those other games, which some are owned by Gaijin, by the way. Or you turn around and you go, right, we need to improve this mode, we need to get more people playing it. And I think they realised with the formula that they had before, it was too dogfighty. Now, there are some players which enjoy that, but that takes away a lot of players who enjoy other things. For me personally, I enjoy dogfighting, but I also enjoy doing this. I also enjoy just being in a bomber and just having a good time. I've been hit by AA here. I've been hit by another plane. I'm still alive, which is nice. But I'm struggling, but at this moment in time, I'm not thinking, oh shit, well, I'm gonna go down or anything like that. And I'm not having fun. I mean, I'm not having fun. I'm having fun in the game, even though I'm probably going to die here. And the reason that is because I'm trying to stay alive. There is a goal in mind. The goal has been achieved, the main one, which is to drop bombs. The second goal is to try and get back to base and survive, and try and be as, kind of realistic as possible. And for me, that's fun. And I understand for a lot of people it may not be fun. Maybe some people just want to go in, be the hero, kill 50 people and be like, hey ho, look at me, I'm amazing. But for me personally, that's never going to be the case. For me, just flying about, dropping some bombs every so often, maybe even being in a fighter, and then dropping, not even dropping, sorry, that's the wrong word, but basically just being in a fighter, going at around maybe 3-4k in the air, just chilling, waiting to pounce on somebody. That for me is fun. I don't have to be in constant combat, which is why enduring confrontation so far has been fun for me. I think it will be useful for a hell of a lot of people who have more time on their hands, or at least, let's say you have a weekend and you can play it for hours. But I still think it's okay just to drop in. The rewards seem good enough to do stuff like that. But we shall see when it actually fully fledged comes out, which will probably be in 1.53. I mean, they've done a lot of tests for Enduring Confrontation, and to be quite honest, they haven't changed a lot between the tests. There are certain differences, slight differences between stuff, but they're not massive. The changes they've made are basically just like bug fixes and stuff like that, and that's really about it. But anyway, with Enduring Confrontation, the major thing I think to take away from stuff like this is that it's a good start. I think the battles are quite fun. They are big enough to make it feel like a skirmish, but not an actual battle or war. I think there's got to be more stuff involved, such as like AI vehicles. I still like the idea of putting railways in. I like the idea of adding different stuff instead of just bases and tank convoys or vehicle convoys. I think the imagination from Gaijin has to be better than that. It really does. Like, at the end of the day, there has to be better stuff that you can figure out. Like, even just batteries of stuff. Like, you have that in some of the ground maps. So why not have it in this? Just say, look, we have a tank convoy going this way. So we know it's going that way. And then we know that it's going to run into a defensive line. Go and aid that tank convoy by taking out some of that defensive line. And doing yourself a bit of service. And doing the tanks a bit of service. And if they break through there, then maybe the enemy loses an airfield because they've lost a defensive line. It's kind of like the trenches in World War One. So they have to move on to the second field, and then you move forward, and maybe you gain an airfield. And you basically do it like that. That's how you balance the game out. And then whoever ends up with the least airfields or something by the end of the battle, then that's how you lose. Now, I think that could work. I'm not entirely sure if that could work, but it's still a possibility. But anyway, in the Heinkel, the wonderful H6, we're trying to get back to base. One of the engines has died, the left engine, so wherever I go, I'm drifting to the left, because obviously, because my right engine is still alive. Oh yes, I'm getting attacked again as well. But anyway, because my left engine is dead and my right engine is alive, it's pushing me left, and it's very much annoying. But that's kind of how it is. I'm still enjoying myself here, though. I'm getting attacked. I'm probably gonna die. But the thing is, for me, there's a challenge. The challenge is to get to the airfield to survive. And for some reason, in realistic battles and arcade battles and stuff like that, it always seems to be, oh, well, you just need to get kills. Also, get screwed, Yak. He's smoking, which is nice. But yeah, I'm pretty much done for here. I've got one dead engine and the other one smoking heavily. So yeah, it's time to find a safe place and ditch the aircraft. But at the end of it, with Enduring Confrontation, when I was flying this bomber, it actually made me feel at least a little bit that I'm here as an actual World War II pilot trying to get back to base, trying to hit our targets and get away. Now, yes, the altitude isn't exactly right. Yes, the planes aren't exactly right, but at least there's a little bit more realism than there is when it comes to just realistic battles. Especially with bombers, where it's just like, oh, dive, hit this, dive, go away. And that's, yeah. He's hit my left wing again, it's tilted me. I can still kind of stay in the air if I pull back the if I pull back on the tail, as you can see, but yeah, it's looking dire. And he's coming in again, just to finish me off. There's really not a lot I can do at this point. And yeah, it's sad. It really is, but oh well, the crew should have survived. I mean, there's no fire or anything like that. Maybe getting impaled by a tree or something. But anyway, we're on to the BF-109 again, and learning from my past mistakes and actually taking off properly. I now figure out why I'm enjoying this mode a lot, and it's kind of what I talked about before. Just flying how I want to fly. It seems like this mode, because it takes a hell of a long time because the tickets don't go down as fast, or because there's different objectives, even though I wish there was more. The thing is, you can play it as you want. If you want to be a lone wolf, maybe taking out bombers as they come in, you can. If you want to try and defend bombers, you can. If you want to get in a bomber and attack stuff, you can. Everything is kind of viable, which is something that in a lot of the game modes, it was definitely seen as certain things were not viable. One of the big ones is, in realistic, in my opinion, stuff like dive bombers and things like that. The bombers which don't have a lot of payload, but they are good at dive bombing, or they have air brakes. Stuff like, as an example, the Dauntless would be a good one. Or the... let's think. The Russian one, which I can't remember the name. The Su-2. They're fun planes, and because at the level that they're at, you can outplay some people, especially in realistic. But there's always going to be a better option for bombing, or fighting, or being an ace. So they're kind of stuck in that middle ground. And the thing is, those types of planes come to life in this. Because one of the biggest issues with realistic is once you're spotted, everybody jumps on you. Whereas in this, it's a lot harder to do that. Because obviously you don't have the view. It is a simulator battle after all, with changing dynamics and changing examples. And the changing examples are stuff like, well, when a base gets taken out, another one opens up somewhere else on the map. Or when an airfield gets taken out, well, you can't use that for a bit, but you have two others. And as you can see, I get up to where I would be if I was a BF-109 pilot. I know for a fact that bombers are coming in to hit my base, because I've seen them. I know for a fact that fighters are all around my base, so the best thing for me to be is to be able to see below me, so I have to be below the clouds, but also at the cloud line, so it's hard to see me. So what I do is I kind of hover at this altitude, and just stick here. So I can still see through the clouds, but hopefully the enemies below me can't see me because I'm technically covered by the clouds. Now I might be completely wrong here, and it might not happen. And maybe they can see me full-fledged and everything. But that was the idea, and I really hope it works. Because otherwise what I'm doing now is completely silly. But anyway, with Enduring Confrontation, it basically means that every vehicle is possible. When it comes to aircraft, it's more down to how you play it instead of what is best. Because anything can be the best depending on the mission in this. Yeah, sure, heavy bombers are always going to be very, very easy to play when you're taking out objectives. Obviously, the best fighters at the certain tiers that are open are always going to be the best. But because of the way the map is, because of the way you know where most of the enemies are, either around your base, if your team has just got smashed, or around their base if your team hasn't, or maybe around an objective if you're looking for bombers. But the thing is, you kind of know where people are, but you don't know exactly where they are. So you are kind of pinned to these areas around the map, around objectives, around airfields, where you can look for people, and they can look for you. But if you feel like it, you could just go off into the sunset. I mean, I don't think you should, but it's a possibility. And the thing is, with it, you can just kind of do what you want. And for me, that's perfect. That's something I've been looking in War Thunder for a long time. It's why I've been playing a hell of a lot of Simulator recently. Because it's much more about setting up a kill, and much more about actual dogfighting, instead of, oh shit, he's seen me, how do I get out of this one? Or, oh shit, I've seen him, how do I kill him before he notices me? Because once you're on somebody's tail in realistic, it generally doesn't go too well for them, and vice versa for you. Mainly because of all the help that mouse aim gives people, but also just because of the flight models. Whereas in realistic, they're a hell of a lot more. Well, it's weird to think about it. Is realistic the right word for that mode? I'm not exactly sure. I suppose it is kind of realistic, but it's not. But anyway, with Simulator, the flight models are a hell of a lot more realistic than they are in realistic. So therefore you can, you can't do weird stuff with your plane. You can't do loops in heavy bombers and stuff like that. Like, you still can do some outrageous things, and a simulator is the best test for looking for, what's the word? Simulator is the best test for looking for bugs in the flight model, as you saw before with the H6, where it started doing loop-de-loops when its tail got taken out, which shouldn't really happen with any plane. But so far, I'll get into it more in part 2 of this, which will probably come out tomorrow. The fact is, Enduring Confrontation is a game mode which needs a hell of a lot of growth. But right now, I enjoy it. Just because I can kind of do what I want. It's something where I can go after a player if I feel like it. If I see 3 in a cluster, I can come in like I am now, cut the engine, try and play it properly with the joystick. Try and line up on somebody, hit them, try and find out where people are, go around the objectives, try and cover our bombers, stuff like that. But I don't know, it's nice. It really is. And flying a BF-109 in it always feels nice. But anyway, that's part of this. What I'll do in the next video, which will be the Russian side, is give some more thoughts and also the conclusion. Advantages, disadvantages, and how to actually make the game mode better. Even though this is a good start, I think it needs a hell of a lot more to it to let it grow and actually become a game mode that a lot of people are going to play. So I'll see you then.